Scott Morrison. Ramon's one of my dear friends. One of the best things I love about Ramon. Dave, my little Ramon, wow! Did he do this at the end? Did he do this at the end? Go, let's wind it up! Yeah, he did. Brilliant. Okay, so let's just start, okay? Because I need a favour from all my friends in the audience today. Here is my 4-year-old daughter. Oh, thank you. 4 years old, okay? She doesn't know what I do for a living. She says to me every day, Daddy, can I come to work with you? I said, you can't really come to work with me because I'm on stage talking to people. I'd love you to come. What I promised her, in my head, was I would get you all to say, hello, Hallie, on video. I'm going to film you so I can show her what I actually do. She knows I don't work in a bank. Will you do that for me, ladies and gentlemen? Okay, after 3, her name's Hallie. So if you just shout, everyone just shout, hello, Hallie, that'd be great. 3, 2, 1, go! Hallie! Yay! There. She'll love that. Brilliant, thank you. Thank you all ever so much. Big round of applause for Steph. I've never been to Montenegro before. I love this place. I'm coming back on holiday this year, right? Look what I wrote last night. Yes! Yeah, I love this one. Thank you, Caroline. Anyway, let's get on with business. I've only got 20 minutes. This usually takes me a day to go through, so we're going to go quick. We're going to get in. What is the boom? Vladimir didn't know what the boom was when I talked about it. I bring the boom. Okay, the boom for me is this inside you. Who in this room thinks they're creative? Oh. Guys, you're all creative, okay? Because this is what the boom is. It's this visceral, hungry animal inside of us. It's curious. It needs to be fed. It's the thing that gets you out of bed in the morning. It's the thing that makes you do the stuff that you do every single day. Sometimes not. But I'm sad to say, like a lot of you didn't put your hands up there, we often keep it caged. Okay, we don't allow our boom to come out. And that means that we're losing our ability to create impactful legacies as people, in our businesses, in the world. What I say is we need to nurture it. Not only do we need to nurture it, we need to create environments where people can unleash their booms. Whatever business you're in, whether you're in a startup, whether you're in a marketing agency, whether you're in a small business, whatever, you need to be able to create this environment for your people to be the best that they can possibly be. Because unleashing it is the best way to get great creative solutions, great problem-solving stuff out of people that work with you. Too often we rely on data for everything. We go, oh, we can't do that, we can't do this, we can't do that. We forgot to use our gut instinct. What I want to talk to you about today, what I want to share with you today is 6 really straightforward tips in whatever business that you're in. And I work with brands like Red Bull, Absolute Vodka, ITV, BBC in the UK. And I say the same thing. How can you as leaders, and you're all leaders by the way, how can you unleash the boom and get the best out of your people? And if at the end of the session, you can take those away, would you all be happy with that? Oh. Yes, thank you. Thank you! Yes. So you're going to get some stuff to take away with you, and you're going to be able to use it in your business. But let me start, thanks Dad, let me start with a story. Everyone know who this is? Yeah. So many years ago, I was really lucky to be able to have breakfast with Nelson Mandela. Not one-to-one, we weren't having cornflakes together, but as part of a group like this. And Nelson Mandela was stood on stage at the London School of Economics, and he was talking to us all about what he'd done in his life. And actually, loads and loads of people coming up on stage, from like the poet laureate in the UK, a guy called Andrew Motion, and various other people, and they were all saying how brilliant Nelson Mandela was, and it was. What was surprising though is Nelson Mandela was sat like this in his chair, really tightly in his chair, wanting to stand up, wanting to get involved. But he was being told by all these people around him to sit still, stay where you are. You're not allowed to get up and move. Because he was in his 70s at this stage, he was quite old. And then something amazing happened. Has anyone heard of Joan Armatrading? Probably such a young audience, you probably don't know who she is. But she's a very famous British songwriter. And she wrote a song for him. So she got on stage, she started playing it, and all of a sudden, something magical happened. Nelson Mandela just pushed people off him, and he stood up like that, and he just danced. I'm not a good dancer. But this is Nelson Mandela, and he just came to the middle of the stage and he started to dance. And everybody in the whole room, all that tension, all that anticipation, just fell apart. Everybody, people were crying and singing and dancing. And I've written a blog post about it, it's called Dance Like Mandela. It's the thing about leaders that you need to think about. Here's actually the picture of him doing it. That's Joan Armatrading. She won't like me for that photo. It's not a very good photo of her. But it's that moment when, as a leader, you allow that creative, visceral animal inside you to get up, get out. And people follow you for that. People love it when people dance like Mandela in organisations because they want to follow you. And it releases a whole load of tension. Authenticity, being true to yourself, and just being an amazing leader. And that, for me, is the whole essence of Boom Leadership. This is what I go and I talk to businesses about, and I help them deliver this in their organisations. Because Boom leaders, and this is everyone in this room as far as I'm concerned, you can all be this kind of leader. They unlock and ignite a passion inside of people that inspires them to do things they never thought possible. How would you feel if you were able to do that for people? You wouldn't. Come on guys, how would you feel? Good? Yeah, excellent. So if you can get this out of your people, imagine the kind of business that you'll be running. And don't just take my word for it, okay? Everyone familiar with Simon Sinek, Golden Circle stuff? Yeah. So he talks about brands in this context. And I talk about leadership in this context, because the first thing about leaders, the whole point of that Nelson Mandela story, is as leaders, when I speak to a lot of leaders in businesses, they say, oh yeah, I can tell you what I do, and I can tell you how I do it. And I say, well, why are you doing it? They go, well, I want to get paid, I want to keep my house, I want to get promoted. That is not the way, clearly, to be a leader, okay? Boom leaders start here with the why. They clearly understand why they are doing what they are doing. They have a purpose and a set of beliefs. I'm going to talk to you today about what the Boom leader why is, how they deliver that, and then what some of the outcomes can be. But I want you to take this stuff away and use it in your organisations, in your businesses, to make your business better. So let's start with the why. If you want to do this exercise, by the way, on your own business, the whole Simon Sinek thing, really easy way to do it is to say that we exist too, so that this happens. Okay, and that's what I do with Boom Leaders. So Boom Leaders exist to inspire incredible future end states. Anyone play professional sport in this room? Yeah? Do you know about incredible future end states? Do you know about visualization, visualizing winning? Great sports people visualize incredible future end states, i.e. the state of mind they're going to be in when they win. Because that's all that matters. It's about being visionary, thinking ahead, visualization. They do that so that people are free to unleash their inner boom. That is the why Boom Leaders exist. That is why, what I always wanted to do in any business I ever went into. I don't know all the answers. I used to hire smart people to me, all those kind of things, but it's true. Because your role as a leader is the orchestra, is to manage the orchestra, you're the conductor. You're not the lead violinist. So when I say that to people, and then also, you can read this quote, I'm not going to read it out. Again, it's from Simon Sinek. And it's about the why. People will do anything for you if they believe in what you're about, if they believe in you. If you just get them to work for you, they'll work for your money. They'll give blood, sweat and tears if they believe in you as a leader. And most importantly, Boom Leaders create legacies. This is, who wants to go off this earth thinking, or in a business going, when I leave this business, they're going to forget about me? No one. You want to leave a decent legacy behind you. Mervyn Davis, who's the ex-governor of the Bank of England, he says exactly that. You've got to be able to know who you're influencing. Otherwise, you're just going to be a leader by accident. Nobody wants to be a leader by accident. So let's look at the how. That's the why. Inspiring future, incredible future end states. How do we go about doing that? Well, I've been really fortunate to work at some of the, I think, some of the greatest brands in the world. I absolutely love working at all these places. And the reason I enjoy working at these places is because the cultures were absolutely rooted right in my boom. So if you think about Saatchi & Saatchi, it's all about nothing is impossible. Always about nothing. Every time you walked into the office, you knew you could do anything that you wanted to do. Why did Kennedy? Again, it's about being original. Nike, Just Do It. Diesel, Only the Brave. But what I've distilled from all these learnings, from all these different brands that I've worked with, is there's one key thing that these people do really, really well. And that is, they create what I call positive disruption. In every single business, these people, the culture behind it, and the way they communicate with their consumers, is all about positive disruption. It's all about how can I make a positive change in my people to get the best out of them? How can I make a positive change to the consumer to get the best out of them? And this idea of positive disruption is what I call the how. Boom leaders in their organisation create positive disruption. And create actually quite nicely is a little acronym. And these are 6 behaviours that I've identified in working in these brands, working with people like Renzo Rosso, understanding what they do and breaking it down. So the first behaviour that boom leaders exhibit is constant reframing. How many people reframe their business? A lot of people in startups are always pivoting, thinking about how they might reframe their business. But frankly, so many people do not reframe the challenges. Has anyone heard of the Solomon method? Yeah? One person? Solomon method. Who follows hot dog eating? Just me. Okay. Hot dog eating in the US, right? It's not a sport. It's a sport. But it's usually done by big fat guys who eat loads of hot dogs and stuff them in the face, right? The world record was 25 in 10 minutes, which frankly disgusts me because I hate hot dogs. And then a guy came along, a little skinny Japanese guy called Kobayashi. He came along and he said, I can break that record, break it quite easily. And he did 50 hot dogs in 10 minutes. He doubled the world record. How? Sorry? Brilliant. You've read books. I love it. There you go. He didn't do it the same way that everybody else did. He reframed the problem. He said, actually, there's nothing in the rules to say I've got to eat the bun and sausage at the same time. So he took the sausage out, he ate the sausage, and he dipped the bun in water, and he stuffed it in his face. And because the water softened up the bun, he was able to do twice as many. And he completely reframed the problem. And he made it, he came up with a completely different solution. It's far better. And I just encourage, this is what leaders do in those businesses that I've been in all the time. Always looking for a new way to frame a challenge. Now here's a really good technique I'm going to give you to do it in your own businesses. You can do this over a beer later on. It's really good to do. Ask yourself, what is a heresy question in my business? What's a heresy question, you say? A heresy question is a pain that you know is happening in your business, but nobody's talking about, let alone anyone is doing anything about it. So I was with a big global media agency recently, and they said to us, oh, Scott, we've got a real heresy question. Our heresy question is, how do we keep maintaining, everyone's familiar with kind of ad agencies and media agencies, that they're always pitching for new business. All their people are pitching all day long. So if we don't do something about it, we're going to literally kill our people. They are spending 18 hours a day doing this. So, well, there's your heresy question. So 140 of them in a room, and we do a load of unlocking techniques, and we create a solution. And the solution to it is called proactive pitching. So we answered the heresy question in a completely different way. We reframed it. We said, clients always call pitches every 5 years, right? So why don't we just go to a client after 4 years and say, you know what? We know, because every 5 years we get a bit complacent. It's 4 years in. We're going to give you a new team. We're going to pitch you our new service. We're going to do a better job for you. 2 things it did automatically. It stops a load of other agencies pitching at the same time. And it stops this constant pitching and spending lots of money. So by asking a heresy question, they've suddenly now got a whole new way that's going to lead the market going forward. Practice that one later on tonight. If you want, I'll be around. I'll help you. The next one is radical collaboration. Now, a lot of you in startups, and you know how startups work, and it's complete like a network of people. You're all doing lots and lots of things. I run a startup myself, so I know, my business partner and I are all about collaboration. But as businesses get bigger, lots and lots of silos develop. A good friend of mine says, silos are your enemy. Do not want silos in your organisation. And what Boom Leaders is great at doing is collaborating all across the business with different people in different ways. If anyone's read the book by John Cotter called Accelerate, if you haven't, it's a great read. But it's all about how do you break down silos in an organisation and create networks that can deliver for you and deliver for your business in a new way. So radical collaboration, absolutely critical. Anyone speak Chinese? Come on, call yourselves international! Yes! Do you speak Chinese? Right, what does that say? I don't speak that much Chinese, Scott, come on. Okay, actually I asked somebody what this was, and she said, I've got it tattooed on my arm. I was like, oh, that's very good. Hope you got the right tattoo, by the way, by telling me what it is, because it could have been all sorts of nightmares. This is the Chinese word, or symbols, for conflict. Okay, now, in the East, they have a very, very different perspective on conflict. conflict. In the West, especially in the UK, for those who've been in the UK, we have a real nightmare with conflict. Oh no, we're all passive aggressive. I work at WeWork, right? And the other week, the coffee machine wasn't working. And the guy who's fixing the coffee machine was stood here. And people coming up, very British, coming to the coffee machine, oh, like that. They didn't say to the guy, excuse me, is the coffee machine nearly fixed? They get all passive aggressive, get really angry about it. So, the Eastern philosophy is very different. And this is the one that I encourage you to think about. The Chinese symbols mean danger, which is what we associate with the West, but also opportunity. And in fact, what it means is all boom leaders embrace conflict. They recognise that to get to the opportunity, you've got to go through danger first. And if you don't, then conflict just becomes a horrible thing to manage. And lots of people absolutely veer away. There's a whole thing called conflict cycle. It's a bit of a nightmare. Well, I didn't do some work with the FBI, but I did some work looking at how the FBI deal with this sort of stuff. And actually what they do, and of course they've got to work with, they're trying to stop terrorists blowing people up, or they've got to stop people hijacking and all that sort of stuff. And what they do when they embrace conflict, they use three really simple things. And Stelly, who was here last year, thankfully you're next, I don't swear like Stelly, he's a real friend, he's a real swearer. But they do three things, okay? Three things. Firstly, they engage. They recognise that conflict is there, and they say, right, something's going wrong, we need to talk about it. The second thing they do, which is more important, which is very un-English, is they empathise. They listen to the side of what the person's thinking, and they try and understand it from their side. A bit like customer-centric sort of thinking. They try and understand what the pain points are. But most importantly, what a lot of people don't do, is they evolve. Hopefully you see that's a smiley face. That's how you should feel when you embrace conflict. But the key thing is evolve. The key thing is always have action plans to move the conflict forward. Otherwise, you just stay stuck in conflict. So that's exactly what boom leaders do. They embrace this idea of conflict. Now, when I put this up sometimes, I say, hey, what do you think that means? Always open, always on.
Be open to new ideas and new thoughts.
Lovely, thank you, sir. I can't see you with that light, but there we are. But when I do ask that question to sometimes, people say, yeah, but I'm always open, always on. I've always got my iPhone in my pocket, and I'm 24/7 on my emails and blah, 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 blah. And that's completely opposite. Always open, always on is about being mindful. It's about being hungry for information, hungry for insights, hungry for different perspectives on things. Has anyone read the book Black Box Thinking by Matthew Syed? If you haven't, I really recommend you read it. It's a fantastic book. But in it, there's a great example of this. Okay, there was a hospital called Virginia Mason in America. They were losing millions and millions and millions of pounds a year on insurance claims, negligent insurance claims for mistakes they were making in the organisation. And the CEO said, hang on a minute, there's got to be a better way of doing this. So he started to watch what was happening. And every single time something negligent happened, he encouraged people to write a note of it, put a ticket in, and then they made a solution. And they did this over a period of time. The death rate completely plummeted. They saved about $400 million in insurance claims, 77% less insurance claims. All because he was just looking and observing and making different solutions. He won a Nobel Peace Prize as a result. But that hunger for information, that hunger, that curiosity is exactly what the boom is all about. That's what fuels us as people, that hunger to learn more. The next one, and I'm sure loads of you already do this, but in a lot of businesses I work with, they hate chaos. Okay, linear businesses are built for certainty. They're built for surety. I was talking to a friend of mine the other day, and he was like, I just got told off for trying to introduce a new revenue model that would have given us exponential growth, because the CEO said, no, we don't want that. We just want 2 to 3% a year. That will help us. That ain't going to grow a business hugely. And in the business that a lot of you guys are working in, you want that kind of exponential growth. This idea of thriving on chaos, cherishing impermanence, it's like Google say, that's why I put this up. Google say, if you want more, go and join the Marines. It's all about making sure that people in your organisation are comfortable with change. It's the only thing that is constant, is change. The top 10 jobs in the world right now did not exist 10 years ago. So ask yourselves, I'm in a nice job now. Oh, what will it be in 10 years' time? Because it might not even exist. I'm doing a lot of work at the moment. I'm talking about chief experiment officers in organisations. How do you get businesses to exponentially grow by experimenting? Nobody's quite picked it up yet. But maybe in a year's time, they will have. But it's also about this. So I also run a startup, and there's a load of stuff I learned from being in brands, but it's totally useless to me now. Absolutely useless. So I'm having to unlearn a whole load of stuff and relearn loads and loads of new stuff. And that's what I encourage you guys to think about and do all the time. It's like learn, know what you know what's not right for you and what's not useful, unlearn it and relearn something else. Go to bed smarter every single day than you were in the morning, even if you just read a blog or a post. And the last part of creating positive disruption is this idea of extreme empowerment. I don't know how many people you all work with and what your teams are all about. But I was just working with a big broadcaster in the UK the other day. We were talking about how do we get our people to take loads of responsibility, to do more stuff, to just grow the business on their own. And they didn't really know how to do it. We did a whole load of work with them. But great leaders recognise that the solutions to their business problem actually lie in their organisation. So they direct their people, they give them the vision, they direct them, they move the hell out of the way. There's a great story about a guy called Mike Asbrahoff, who run the USS Benfold, I think it was, in the US Navy. It was the worst performing ship in the whole of the US Navy. Everyone hated to go on there, it's like going on a prison ship. But basically when he came on, he went round to everybody in on the whole of the ship, 2,000 people, and said, right, what do you do? And they say, I fix the rivets on the ship. You go, okay, cool. What's one thing you do to make your job better? And that person said, well, I'd stop buying metal nuts and I'd start buying rubber ones. They're cheaper and they last longer. Okay, do it. What? Yeah, do it. And he went around with 2,000 people. And the ship went from being the worst performing ship in the US Navy to being the top gun of the US Navy. Simply by empowering the people to come up with the right solutions. Again, unleashing people, boom, to be able to do what they need to do in the business. When I joined Sarchi's, you used to get this poem on your desk. First thing you walked in, this is on your desk. It's a beautiful poem, and it's all about empowering people. I'll read it to you because it's really hard to read from there. But basically, this is me on my first day. And I am a woman. I was a woman on my first day at work. No. It's a different story. But anyway, that was me, nervous. But what Sarchi's taught me was this whole idea of, come, as the poem says, come to the edge. And I was going, but I might fall. Come to the edge, was my leader. But it's too high. Come to the edge. And they came, and he pushed, and they flew. You as a leader need to encourage your people to be jumping off that cliff. Because once they jump off the cliff, they fly. But too often, we want to hold all the knowledge to ourselves. We don't want to give people the impact. We want to do everything ourselves, especially founders of startups, from my experience. Sometimes we want to hold on to everything. Just let your people do it for you. Let them fly. And the reason this is important, John Bradfield and I were talking last night about what works for great startups is when that product has a really visceral reaction from the consumer. And your cultures in business have to have that visceral effect on all their people. Because anyone can copy your strategy or your product eventually, but they can't copy your culture. And at Diesel, when I used to look at Diesel, people say it's like a cult in here. And yeah, it was. And the word cult is in culture. And it's important that it is. And it's because of this that we talked about earlier, that Simon Sinek said. This is why culture is massively important. This is why I think more and more businesses need to adopt these kind of behaviours, just to make their people fantastic. So these are the 6 behaviours that I want you to think about in your own organisations. Take them back, use them, practice them. You will become better leaders as a result. Absolutely brilliant leaders, I guarantee you. So we said, boom leaders create this idea of positive disruption. That's the how. We talked about the why. Just talked about the how. And what happens, I usually at this stage, when I've got a little bit longer time, I usually show a video about some results that we had when I was at Diesel. But actually, what actually happens when you do this is you unleash the people in your business to be the people that you want them to be fantastic. Leadership is not about creating followers. Leadership is about creating more leaders. So you are free to do more stuff that you need to focus on and concentrate on. So I leave you with my visual of Nelson Mandela. I leave you with what I think boom leadership is all about. And I leave you with the thing that I want you to take away is that you can all be boom leaders. You really can. You just have to try and practice some of the stuff we talked about today. Here's a little diagram for you. I'll give this to Vladimir actually. But these are all the different things that boom leaders do. embrace change, stay happy, all these things. These are the stuff that I do. What I want you to go and do is go and create. Go create your organisations. Take this stuff back with you. Make your organisations great and unleash the boom. Thank you very much. Pleasure. So hot here.
It's because of you, probably.
That's because I'm running around.
No, before we start, I'm interested in the most important story you mentioned. So how your transition from a hot blonde chick to a hot black guy.
Yeah, it's a long story.
Okay, so at the beginning you said this usually takes me a whole day with a company.
Yeah.
And when I'm in a keynote, it usually takes me an hour.
Yeah.
And I only have 20 minutes with you guys. So we should probably call this like the best of the best, or like the greatness refined, or an all-star presentation from Scott.
Well, usually what I do is, each of those different behaviours that we talked about there, there's a series of exercises that I run through with people. And we go through their own organisation and we go, right, here are the 6 things that you need to do. Now let's do it with your business. Could I ask a favour for whoever's over there? Could they bring my towel to the table? Because I'm having all these photos and I look like a tramp.
So any questions in the meantime, just raise your hands.
It's on the table there. Do you mind taking something out of your spot? Thank you. Sorry. It's not the nicest job. I owe you a beer. Pardon me, folks. Gets hot. Okay, sorry.
So you mentioned that leaders create legacies.
Yeah.
So what do you see your legacy to be?
Well, interestingly, a lot of the people that I worked with, or have led, or have been parts of my team. My mum. A lot of the people that I've worked with have gone on to lead their own teams. So I've got someone who's a global person at Nike now, people running Diesel, various businesses, and I think the legacy always has to be the people that you leave behind. They should be better than when you started. You've got to leave them, make them better than they were when you started. And if they're going to great things, that's kind of my legacy. So a lot of people are like, 10 years time, hopefully, I'll be up calling them when I need some work. But yeah, they're all doing really good stuff, and the whole thing for me is the legacy of people.
That's awesome. So basically, you feel that the responsibility of leadership should be to create new leaders.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, got it, man.
And I think there's kind of a fallacy in leadership, which is, as a leader, you've got to know all the answers to everything. You've got to tell everyone what to do. You've got to direct everybody. And the best leaders I've ever worked with are the leaders who say to me, you know what, I don't know. I don't have that answer.
And how do you get over yourself?
Well, so yeah, you've got to get over yourself. Yeah. When I used to do it, the 2 things, I used to hire people who were always smarter than me and gave them a very clear remit and say, right, this is what you're going to do, and you're also going to educate me. So you almost have like an agreement with your team to say, here's where I'm going to help you, here's where you're going to help me. And those kind of leaders who are really authentic and respect people in their team for their skills are the ones that progress. Because there's nothing worse. I work with CEOs and stuff, and they say, oh yeah, I know all the answers to this, I know all the answers to innovation. And then they do something and you go, why have you spent £25 million doing that? It was totally wrong. And somebody in the team told you. So it's all about being authentic and humble.
And leadership culture, you mentioned both of these many times during your talk. So which one influences which? What's the relation with these 2?
For me, culture is absolutely the most important thing in any business. Everyone says like culture and strategy for breakfast and stuff, but it is absolutely imperative. You look at Netflix or Zappos, those kind of things that you've read about and seen, but any business that can create the right culture and build leadership in that, and the expectation of everybody in the organisation, what they're expected to do and why this is the culture, you'll win every time. Because like I said, anyone can copy your strategy, anyone can copy your product, but nobody can copy your culture. And that's key.
And in 20 minutes, you recommended 3 different books.
Yeah.
Right now you quoted Peter Drucker, so that's the 4th book. So that's arguably, I'm not sure about the official statistics, but that's like probably the most number of books recommended in a single 20-minute talk.
Oh,
so is this like one of your ways of unlearning and relearning?
Absolutely, absolutely. So I always try and, I always talk about the books that I read, because when I started my own business, lots of people recommend lots of books for me to read. And that's how I unlearned some of the stuff, some of my bad habits from being in some of the brands that I worked in, and learned a whole different way of working, a whole different way of thinking. So all those books that I mentioned, so there's Matthew Syed, which is Black Box Thinking, I mentioned Accelerate by John Cotter.
Yeah, and Simon Sinek.
But they're just great books on how you can transform business. The key to all those things is then how do you make them work in your own business? There's a lot of books out there that talk a lot of theory, but actually it's how you put it into practice in your own organisation. You have to sort of figure that out yourself.
Okay, man. One last question.
Yeah.
What lights your spark?
Yay! So one question I usually ask people when I meet them is, what fires you up? So a little bit like that. But
it's not exactly the same.
It's not exactly the same. But my whole thing is meeting people. As you know, last night, right? So I met Ramon for the first time when we did a conference together, and now he's recommending me for these kind of things. And I met Steli. I love meeting new, interesting people, and coming to places like this fires me up because I learn so much. I've learned so much about Montenegro. I met some great people last night at dinner. I'll probably meet some great people today. But my one last thing is that a friend of mine, I'm not name dropping, it's an old friend of mine, he used to, Marvin Gaye spent the last part of his years in Belgium as a tax exile, right? You wouldn't believe it, but he did. And he was a friend of my friends. They used to do music together. And Marvin Gaye used to say to my friend, he said, what's the one big tip you give me? And Marvin Gaye said to him, just give everyone 5 minutes. If after 5 minutes you've made a visceral connection, give them more. If you haven't, then you say thank you very much, but give everyone 5 minutes. I think that's the key to having a very fulfilling and meaningful way of meeting lots of people.
So if I understood you correctly, you're going to give me 5 minutes with Simon Sinek to get him on stage. Thanks, guys.